What is going on, Giants fans, and welcome back to Bet the Over. As we did last week, I'm going to be recapping week 2 of the preseason, in which the Giants played against the Miami Dolphins. And the Giants absolutely dominated this game. They won the game 26-3 in their second preseason game, and there were some performances that we definitely need to recap and go over. For starters, the quarterback, too, Jameis Winston, looked sharp. A rookie offensive lineman might have earned himself a spot on this roster, but there was some concerns, especially for running back Tyrone Tracy and potentially Odell Beckham Jr. And we're going to break down in this episode the biggest winners and losers of this game. But before we get into it, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to be doing Giants content all throughout the preseason, the regular season, and then the off season, like I've done for the past couple months. Now, before we get started, I will say this game was a little bit different from week 1. The Giants starters, for the most part, did not play. We did see Arvell Reese out there on defense. We didn't even see Malachi Fields out there. We didn't really see Colton Hood. He might have snuck in there, but I didn't really see him too much. So this game was mostly second string and third stringers. So let's get right into it. The defense of this game absolutely dominated. The Dolphins were held to just 102 yards and 3 first downs the entire game, which is insane. Miami rushed for only 50 yards, averaging just 2.8 yards per carry. If quarterbacks combined for only 8 completions total. Now, hinting on the running game, that's one of the Giants' biggest areas of concern for the team. I mean, they did sign 2 big defensive tackles this offseason. As you all know, we lost Dexter Lawrence, and the run defense was bad with Sexy Dexy. So the run defense, they're projected to not be the best in the league, obviously. And after week 1 against Minnesota, it was not looking good because Minnesota was ripping off 15, 20-yard runs. Miami did have a big run earlier on. However, the defense did kind of lock in and shut that down. And that's going to be one of the key areas all Giants fans should look out for regular season week 1 and throughout the whole regular season, because if you can't stop the run, your elite pass rushers won't have enough time to get to the quarterback. Whereas if you get the other team in third and long, those defensive ends can eat in Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, or maybe even Arvell Reese. So obviously, this is just preseason. We're not talking about an offense running its full playbook when we get into it, when we're talking about Miami. But the Giants were also using this game to evaluate their depth, and the defense completely controlled the matchup. What I liked most is how aggressive the defense looked in general. Guys were flying to the ball, challenging wide receivers. The secondary looked pretty good this game. We'll get into a couple winners and losers in a little bit, and that's exactly the type of identity you want to see out of Denard Wilson, which is a very aggressive defense, unlike last year where it was more kind of drop back in coverage and don't let them beat you deep. So without further ado, let's get into some winners of this game. Winner number 1, like I said in the intro, is going to be famous Jameis. Winston got the start with Dart out this week, and he looked exactly what you want from your backup quarterback. I know a lot of people were saying this. I kind of agree. Jameis Winston is definitely one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league. You could argue maybe even the best, just because his leadership, the team likes him, and he looks pretty good at times. As you all probably know, he went 30 picks and 30 touchdowns in a season, so he's an absolute gunslinger. You never know what he's going to get, but in this game, Jameis took off, actually, heading for the pylon and dove into the end zone for the Giants' first score of the game, which was not on the bingo cards for me. Not going to lie, Jameis Winston scoring a rushing touchdowns. However, Jameis does whatever he wants, and most importantly, he looked comfortable in the pocket, running the offense. He made good throws, made good decisions, and did not turn the ball over, which has been one of Jameis Winston's kryptonites. If Jameis Winston didn't turn the ball over, he'd be a starting quarterback in this league, no doubt in my mind. Dart is obviously the future, but having a backup who can really step in and run the offense effectively is definitely helps me sleep at night. You think about the Detroit Lions game last year where the Giants almost upset Detroit in Detroit with Jameis Winston starting at quarterback, where he literally mossed some guy, jumped up in the air. He didn't moss him, but he jumped up, gave some guy a crazy stiff arm, and he almost scored a touchdown. I think he got tackled, but that's not what you're expecting out of the QB2. And with Jackson Dart's injury history, even if Winston has to go in for a couple plays, it's not going to be a Tommy Cutlet situation where they just run the ball the entire time. So definitely a very good backup quarterback. Jameis Winston is winner number 1 on the list. Next guy we're going to get into is offensive tackle J.C. Davis. One of the biggest surprises from this game was definitely J.C. Davis. He's a 6th-round pick playing left tackle, and he played the entire game and did not allow even 1 sack, which is very promising. That is the type of performance that changes a roster construction. J.C. Davis is probably fighting for a roster spot at this point, and he could be the backup swing tackle with Marcus Bowe. So they're really in a direct competition, I'd say. And J.C. Davis, I'm not going to lie to you, he looked good. Was he going up against the Dolphins' number 1 defense? Definitely not. But the Dolphins in general just aren't a very talented team. So even if it was the Dolphins' number 1 offense, he could have potentially held his own. I don't know why I keep saying offense, but it's defense. Coming into the preseason, you might have looked at Davis as someone the Giants could potentially stash on their practice squad. But after this game, that kind of becomes risky because when you put someone on the practice squad, another team can swoop in and take him. Young offensive tackle with legitimate upside is valuable, and if the Giants expose him to waivers, another team could claim him after this performance. The Giants have spent years searching for reliable offensive linemen and depth, so when a rookie steps up and handles the kind of workload that J.C. Davis did after this game, you definitely have to pay attention. I'm not saying J.C. Davis is going to start. If he's starting, there's probably a couple injuries to the offensive line, but he absolutely made a case to make the 53-man roster, and we definitely have to monitor that moving forward, going through practices, seeing where he starts, whether he's on the second team or the third team. Next winner, we got Devin Motor Singletary. Devin Singletary had a very strong game. He had 8 carries for 40 yards along with a touchdown. He averaged 5 yards per carry, looked decisive, and reminded everyone that he can still contribute to this offense. And that matters because the Giants do have a crowded running back room. You think of Tyrone Tracy, you think of Cam Scadaboo, you think of recently signed Najee Harris, and Motor Singletary is not giving up, and he's remaining in that conversation. Someone is going to have to lose snaps, and potentially someone could lose a roster spot. Singletary's biggest advantage is reliability. He understands how to find rushing lanes, and he can help in the pass protection and gives the coaching staff a veteran presence that I think they needed. And one of the main reasons why I think they signed Najee Harris last week was because they needed another guy on this offense, because this offseason, draft season, the Giants were heavily involved or related to running back Jeremiah Love. He ultimately didn't get to them. They were in conversations with Seattle or Kenneth Walker, not Seattle, to sign him as a free agent. They ended up not signing them. So they definitely were concerned with the running back group, and Devin Singletary is making a case to start on this team, because piggybacking off of that, the next guy I have as a loser of this week is probably who you would guess, Tyrone Tracy. I don't want to act like Tracy had a terrible game. He did have a couple good runs. He had 26 yards on 6 carries and caught 3 passes for 22 yards. So in that department, he looked good. He did look athletic and versatile. However, he did end up fumbling the football, which is a big no-no, especially to John Harbaugh. But just in general, when you're fighting for a roster spot, you can't be making those crucial mistakes. I know it's preseason and it didn't affect them, but when your counterpart who you're fighting with looks good and you look bad, you're definitely going to lose some snaps in the long run. I think he's still talented. He probably will still make the team, but some people are saying Tyrone Tracy might get cut from this football team. So he definitely needs to figure it out, and he needs to get out of the doghouse with John Harbaugh, because after that blown block last week, along with a fumble this week, his stock is declining every single day. So he's got to do something to make it up to this team. Next winner, we got Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton was another player who helped his draft stock, or not his draft stock. I don't know why I keep saying that. His potential starting stock. He caught 4 passes for 58 yards and led the Giants in receiving. Every offseason, it feels like people start to wonder if Slayton's going to be replaced or moved, and he consistently comes back. He ends up being okay. I know a lot of people don't like Darius Slayton. I get it. He hasn't been fantastic. He's been reliable at least, but he gives the Giants an experienced speedster on the outside who can help stretch the field with Malik Neighbors, Malachi Fields, Calvin Austin, and Darnell Mooney all part of this wide receiver conversation. Slayton's exact role is something to watch. But this was a good reminder that he can still make an impact on this team or in the game. And he had 4 catches for 58 yards. So that's pretty good. Next guy we're going to get into, it's not really a winner or a loser, but it poses the question, what's going to happen with OBJ? OBJ, honestly, you could say he was a loser. He was definitely the biggest storyline going into the offseason or when they signed him. But Odell finished with 2 catches for 17 yards, had a nice 12-yard reception where he kind of broke a guy's ankles. But the question isn't whether or not Odell can play or not. The question is if the Giants have room for him. The wide receiver room, although it's not the most talented, they are pretty deep. I feel like they have 4 to 5 wide receiver 2/3s, and Odell Beckham Jr. also falls in that category. So you think of Darius Slayton, Darnell Mooney, Calvin Austin, Malachi Fields, and Malik Neighbors coming back week 1 definitely moved his spot down. I don't think the Giants expected him to make it. That's why they signed all these wide receivers in the offseason. But Neighbors looks like he's going to play week 1. I'm praying, along with Braxton Berrios, who improves this team on special teams, maybe not in the wide receiver room. But this matters because the final receiver on the roster usually has to do more than just catch passes, like I just said. So if the Giants are choosing between Odell and a younger player who can help on special teams, they're going to choose the younger player. But I would love an Odell reunion. I definitely think he has talent still, and he could help a team. It just might not be the Giants this year, or he might even retire from the NFL because he is getting up there in age. Next winner we got. Common offseason winner so far, Deonte Banks. On defense, one player who's definitely needed a strong performance was Deonte Banks. Banks finished with 2 tackles and 2 pass breakups. Most importantly, he looked confident, and he actually looked pretty sticky, I'm not going to lie. Do the Dolphins have the best wide receivers in the NFL? Not even close. However, he was doing his job well. The biggest thing with him is he usually plays pretty good coverage, but he never snapped his head around to find the ball. So if the wide receiver just stopped running and he ran into them, he would give the other team a first down off pass interference call. But however, recently he does look like he's been coached up and he turns his head. Maybe it's Denard Wilson yelling at him, but if Deonte Banks can take a step forward and be at least a serviceable cornerback, that would make a huge, huge difference to this team. I personally didn't think he would do it. I was saying all offseason, I hope Deonte Banks didn't see the field, but if he continues to play the way he's playing, he deserves his spot back, and he can also return kicks as well. So that's another way he can add value to this football team. Next 2 guys we have are Drew Phillips and Tyler Nubin. Drew Phillips and Tyler Nubin also deserve recognition as well. Phillips finished with 3 solo tackles, a tackle for a loss, and a forced fumble. One note about Phillips as well, though, is he did give up a pretty bad pass interference against not such good wide receivers. So that's kind of the good with the bad. He gave up a big play, and then later, I think on that same drive, forced a fumble. What made these defensive performances encouraging, it wasn't just one guy with one big game. The entire secondary in general were making plays, breaking passes up, making tackles. So overall, I was pretty happy with the secondary, and if they can continue to build and just be a middle of the pack secondary, their pass rush will help them out tremendously because they will generate so much pressure. Next, we're going to go on some rookie watch. Let's get into the rookies. Arvell Reese didn't play a ton, but he continues to look like somebody the Giants are preparing for a meaningful role. The couple plays he did get in there, he just runs up. He's super fast. He hits the first blocker, and he's somehow involved in the play. And that's what we want out of Arvell Reese. I want him to be playing mean and aggressive. Next guy, Bobby Jamison-Travis, meanwhile, made the most of his opportunity. He recorded a sack and a tackle for a loss. That's exactly what we want. We need better defensive tackle play. Another loser that I don't have, but definitely has been losing these past couple weeks is Darius Alexander. He seems like he's going down the depth chart. He really is not helping out in the run game, and that's one area he definitely is needed the most. And if he can't stop the run, he's not going to be out there starting with the starters. Next guy. So those were kind of the rookies, I guess. There wasn't, like I said, there weren't too many starters out there, or I mean, there were a lot of rookies, but not the starting team. But biggest rookie winners, J.C. Davis, Reese, and Fields. This rookie class is really looking or giving the Giants something to be hopeful about. All those guys have looked good in the 2 preseason weeks. Next winner, we got Dominic Zvada, the kicker. One special teams. Quick note, his longest field goal was 43 yards. Ben Sauls also made both of his attempts, but Zvada looks like he has a strong chance to win this job. He has the bigger leg. There's no doubt in my mind that Zvada can nail 50-yarders, whereas Ben Sauls, it's kind of iffy in that sense, but they were both perfect 2 for 2. Final thoughts. Overall, I think this was a really encouraging performance. The Giants won 26-3. The defense allowed just 3 first downs, and several players strengthened their case for the final roster. My biggest winners of this entire week were J.C. Davis, Devin Singletary, Deonte Banks, and the entire defense, honestly, along with Jameis Winston. My biggest loser is definitely Tyrone Tracy. He is literally on the roster bubble at this point, which is crazy because last year he didn't even play that bad. He just is very inconsistent. Another loser I'd say is Darius Alexander. Like I said before, he struggles to stop the run, which is the Giants' biggest weak point on defense. So he might not get any playing time this offseason. I don't think he would get cut just because they're so weak at that position. But next biggest question heading into the final preseason game is whether Odell Beckham Jr. has made this team or is he going to get cut from this team. But I want you to know, I want you guys to comment down below who your biggest winners were of this game. Are you concerned about Tyrone Tracy? Do you think Odell Beckham Jr. will make this football team? Drop your likes, drop your comments, subscribe. I appreciate you guys. We've gained a couple followers in this past week. Let's go Giants and bet the over.